Richard, before you became Richard Hart, well, obviously you were always Richard Hart, but before you became the Richard Hart we know, what were you like? If I met you in high school, what would I think about you?
I was I was the guy that got in very, very, very last because someone else didn't make it into the smartest possible school. So
Hmm.
like I was really lucky. My mom always read to me when I was young, and I started reading at like 3. She'd follow along with the words and stuff. And then I went to elementary school, and I was only there like a day or two. They pulled me out of class, and they're like, "All right, you got to take this test." And then they just kicked me out of that school to a smarter person's school. I was like, "All right, that's weird." And then that school was all black, so there was like 8 or 9 white kids in the gifted class. Like it was like a funny experience. So when I get angry, I speak differently than I do in normal language. So like where I grew up was a pretty shitty neighborhood, and so then there was this. So when you go to elementary school, there's like 5 years of it, and then you go to middle school, and this guy named Bert Kaufman, I think he was an MIT grad. He invented his own like teaching system, his own new math, and it was really amazing. And it was taught down in Davie, Florida, just west of Fort Lauderdale, about 15 minutes. And that, he invented it, and he taught it there. And it was called MEGSSS, Math Education for Gifted Secondary School Students. And the curriculum in that program was more advanced than anything that I ever got after, including high school, college. So we learned logic and set theory before math, because you can derive
Wow.
math from those things. So we were learning syllogistic inference and modus ponens and modus tollens and, a lot of straight up logic in 6th grade. Like, I don't even know how old you are in 6th grade. I think you're 12 years old, right? So, and then it just kept being good. Like, so we learned programming too, and we didn't learn the programming most people would be taught, which would be like basic. Like, we learned scheme programming, which is a dialect of Lisp, which is the most powerful programming language in the world. Now, because it's so powerful, it has no adoption, because everyone just builds their own dialect that no one else can build off of, and it's not well documented, right? So
Okay.
I got really, 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 really lucky with my education from elementary to middle. Then high school is basically whatever, take shop and take gym and like lift weights and just like waste. Didn't learn anything. Didn't learn anything at all. So I went to college a year early, and they just paid for me to go to college for free, just because I decided to graduate a year early. It's called early admissions. And yeah, I guess I was the king of the nerds. Like, I was the most popular nerd. Had no fashion sense. Wore a Led Zeppelin t-shirt every day. Like, just didn't get many dates. But it's all different now. Like, now I get as many dates as I want. You just learn new skills, right? Like, fashion's a
Right.
skill, and so people put their skills in different orders. Some people learn computers first and people later, and some people learn people first and computers later. So you can't. It's pretty hard to learn them all at the same time.
Did you who did you hang out with though? What were your friends like, for example?
Well, I mean, so because everyone there was super, super, super intelligent, like way smarter than me, I was I barely got in there, right? So like my SAT score was a 1390 out of 1600.
Hmm.
And then everyone else there was like 1500, 1600 flat, like couple of perfect scores in there. I couldn't get a perfect score if I wanted to, right? They're just smarter humans than me. So there was no dating. Like, no one dated in our class. Uh, you know, the jocks. So you basically, what, in high school, you have goths, jocks, cheerleaders, nerds. We were the nerds, but it was a school of nerds, right? So no fashion sense, no dating, no drugs. It's just weird, different experience than what most kids have. So we just played cards in the hallways, and you learn this thing where if you get up on your friend playing cards, he's just going to keep doing double or nothing until he doesn't owe you anymore, and then he'll try and transfer his debt to all his friends. So you have to like collect from them. It was like you learn all these tricks growing up.
Right. Right. Well, they say that you're the sum of your. If you hang out with 5 drug dealers, you'll become the sixth. If you hang out with 5 millionaires, you'll become the sixth. So, I guess that worked out for you there. So,
Yeah,
what
I
about?
mean, part of the reason I got into business is I had a friend that, he started his own computer business when we were in middle school. Um,
Mm,
like he was building computers and selling them out of his mom's house or whatever. And then I ended up doing the same thing for car stereo. So the same thing he did, selling stuff out of your house. He did it for computers, and I did it for car stereo stuff. And then, he built a shopping cart later on in life, and then I sold that shopping cart, right? And like
right.
he was all he like he was always ahead of me, right? So he did martial arts a year ahead of me. Then I did it for a couple years after him, same class. It was his idea to do the graduating early. I never heard of it. So he was always ahead of me, and that helped me get to where I am. Like I
Mm.
retired at 25. Like, what do you want? I worked for a couple years and retired and traveled the world. Doesn't get much better than that, right? I mean, I guess I could have more impact, which I'm working on now.
So your first job, you started your own business?
My first job was working for my dad. So my dad delivered newspapers to the
Mm.
airport and to 7-Elevens, and it's called commercial delivery. So there's home delivery where you're like throwing them out of your car against people's doorsteps, and then there's commercial delivery where you're taking huge stacks, which is I think why I have good trap muscles, because you're just carrying these papers around all the time. And
And your chain.
right, yeah, you got to make sure they don't slide out when like on the Sundays when they have the comics in there, in the inserts they get really slippery. So you really got to pin them in there. I'm surprised you know that. So yeah, and then your hours are weird, right? So your night starts at like midnight, and then it finishes up at like 5 or 6. And then he also had an air conditioning company too that he started, and we would go out and fix air conditioners and stuff, which is in Florida a very, very, very crappy job. You make less money than plumbers, electricians, carpenters, right? But you have to
Mm.
be able to do plumbing and electrician work and carpentry and drywall. You have to be able to do everyone else's job, but you don't get paid anymore for it, which is funny. And like working in
Mm.
an attic where it'll be 100 plus degrees outside and 90% humidity, and then it's you in an attic surrounded by fiberglass, which itches and doesn't wash off, and you can't prevent it from getting in every part of your body and itching.
Mm.
You can try and put baby powder on first, but it never worked for me. And then it's just you and your single light bulb up there. This was before LEDs, right? They weren't a thing. So you're up there alone in the heat. The roof has a million nails through it that if you sit up too high, you're getting a nail in the back,
Oh
sweating to
wow.
death. And then while you're in there, someone kicks the extension cord, and now you don't have any light, and it's dark. You just see like a little light coming through the roof. And when you yell, no one can hear you because the fiberglass like eats up all the sound. It's terrible, terrible, absolutely worst, crappiest job. I mean, roofing, because you have to breathe the tar, is pretty crappy too. Or if you're a plumber and someone sends a log down the pipe at you, I mean, I guess everyone's got their own version of what sucks. So I
Right.
came from nothing, and I appreciate. I was eating McDonald's yesterday, and I was thinking, damn, this is delicious. I like McDonald's. I was raised on McDonald's. It tastes good. I don't need. I know what Michelin class, Michelin star restaurants taste like, and I know what McDonald's tastes like, and because I grew up with less, I appreciate. I don't need the silver spoon stuff. I do it because yeah, it's a little better, but I'm okay if I'm not.
So would you say that job was one of the important roles that made you want to become an entrepreneur, made you want to do your own stuff?
Well, I think from the very beginning in school, everything was teamwork and working in teams. And then when I was growing up, everything was teamwork. So I was working with people from 5th grade all the way through my entire life with everyone with different backgrounds. And then the
Mm.
funny thing is, in air conditioning, everyone's addicted to drugs. So everyone's got their license suspended. Everyone lives with their mom. Everyone is going to court for some reason soon. Everyone needs money, constantly broke, and they're all addicted to drugs, whether it's alcohol or crack. Crack was surprisingly popular amongst people I worked with. And yeah, you get funny stories out of it. Like it turns out people that have crack addictions tend to have very interesting life experiences that you wouldn't know that you could have. like
Right.
like when you drive into a certain part of the neighborhood that a normal person would never go, but that's where the crack is. a lot of weird, violent things happen over there. Like, you know, you give them the money and they don't give you the drugs, and now you're fighting, you know, in the car, punching in and out of it. Like, hilarious stories. But those guys don't live that long. So all the people, I guess one of them's still alive. So, but he's in jail. Yeah, Florida sucks. It's a shithole. It's a violent, drug-riddled, hot. Nobody speaks English. I don't like it at all. So that's my experience growing up in Florida.
So after you did your own company and you essentially became an entrepreneur, and we're going to get back into that in a second. One question: how did you get involved in Bitcoin? When was like the first time?
So
how did you get involved?
when I did this car stereo store out of my front yard, got a store, hired all my friends. I was lucky they were smart because we all went to smart kid school. Then my buddy had a shopping cart, started selling that. Then he got a client that did mortgages, so then we started doing mortgage leads. Then I started a mortgage company. We did pay-per-click management. We did SEO. Then got up to 150 employees, sold anything that we could sell on the internet, grossed about 60 million a year.
Wow.
And this is just, I started this on my own. And it would take me about 2 years every business. So like my car stereo store was about 2 years. The search engine optimization was maybe about a year. And then everything else blew up. That took about 2 years. And then just didn't need to do it anymore. Like the money, you realize that money doesn't actually, once you make over 75 grand a year, the studies say you are not going to get any happier for more money. You're not going to get less happy. You're not going to get more happy. And my experience was, and particularly living in Florida, is that you're going to get the shit robbed out of you. So, you know, people just leave with hard drives, or you see people looking over other people's shoulders, steal data. You have to sue people and get injunctions because they're stealing your client list. Like, you know, it's just a ton of suck, right? And then lawyers, you give them money, but you never get money back. It's magical, right? Like a lawyer will do a wonderful job, but then when you look at the end totals, the lawyer made money and no one else made money. So yeah, I called it quits and started traveling the world. So when you're traveling the world, this is around 2003, moved down to Panama, got the shit robbed out of me, moved to Argentina, did Europe for 4 years, Australia, just everywhere. I think I had to go to like 20 different countries at least. Do about, you know, if a country's big, you can play around in different cities there, maybe a month. If a country's small, you might only be able to do a week. So when you're browsing around, you got nothing to do. You got a lot of reading time and a lot of gaming time. So I was addicted to games for a good decade. Blew 10 years of my life on stupid games. I used to Reddit all the time, right? And on Reddit, I saw when Bitcoin was less than $1. And then I saw it when it was $1 and someone had like sold their house for it. I think it was like 270 grand, maybe 170, but I think 270. And then, you know, then I saw the Silk Road article. The price was like 10 or 12. And then when I got in, it was 30. I got to be part of the fucking absolute top that then went down to 1. And I was also mining at the same time because I was addicted to games. I had a really strong video card. It was a ATI 5970, which is a dual chip on one card. And they're like the two strongest chips on one single card. And then I, you know, was able to mine full blocks by myself with 50 coin rewards. Didn't last very long because the difficulty got so high so quickly. Yeah, so I mean, I pretty much, I heard about it on Reddit first, probably as early as anybody, you know, under $1, but didn't get in. And then FOMO'd the top with everyone else that saw the Silk Road article. So you'd be surprised. Like, you could be a very successful businessman, which I was, but you don't know anything about order books or liquidity or slippage or depth. And so when you are just like FOMO the top, market buy it, you know, had I been a week later or a week earlier, I'd have 10 times the money. It's like fucked up, you know? It's like,